Small Business Department has set itself an ambitious target. This will be done through the Small Business and Innovation Fund. To discuss this further, I'm joined by Small Business Development Minister Khumbudzo Ntshavheni. Thank you so much for your time tonight, Minister. I wonder what this initiative is in response to.
The initiative is in response to catalyzing entrepreneurship in the country, but supporting those who are already entrepreneurs. And our focus is mainly on women, young people and communities in the rural areas and our townships. And I think it's also a response to the unemployment rate that is engulfing our country. The numbers, they continue to be bad, including the numbers that talk about the increasing inequality. And we think that small businesses, like in other countries, in other continents, have done, they can create jobs and they can bridge the inequality gap. And they cannot do it on their own. They need to be assisted by their own government and industry. So we launched the SBIF last year, but we could not roll it out in terms of implementation. And then this year we started to implement in full steam, and that's why we're here.
One of the biggest challenges that small and medium enterprises face is access to funding. Banks certainly won't touch you simply because you're a great credit risk to them, and often it's government agencies that might be able to lend a helping hand. But the red tape is simply almost impossible to get through, Minister.
Yes, the red tape is impossible, but that's why we've done a few initiatives to reduce the red tape. The first one, the form itself, or the forms that small businesses or any business have to complete when they're applying for funding, they are complex, whether it's in a bank or wherever it's complex. So what we then decided to do is to introduce a common application template, which is applicable across the DFIs. That is, and now we've started with CIFA, CEDA, and NEF. The Land Bank and IDC are also going to come on stream in not so distant future. But that form allows you to, if you are rejected at CIFA, you are able to take it to NEF. Or if NEF doesn't fund that, you will be able to take it to the Land Bank. So it reduces the time that it takes a small business to apply. Previously, small businesses were using consultants to apply for funding because of the complexity. That's the one part. The second part is the time it takes. So you apply for funding, you'll wait for days on end without a response. So now we've penned down ourselves to say within 2 days of applying, if you're online, you should get feedback whether your form is complete with all the supporting documents. If they're not there, we'll tell you specifically which ones are outstanding, you attach, you send through. If you hand deliver it, at the spot when you hand deliver, we'll tell you what's missing, whether it's complete is done. But we have also saying within 20 days for bridge financing, we should be able to give you the response. Bridge financing is when you have a purchase order or a contract somewhere to supply something. So we're saying in 20 days we should give you a response that your application has been approved. And we're saying for the term ones, the ones who are doing their own businesses, Kethu applies to say, I want funding because I've started my own manufacturing, I'm manufacturing Y and Z. Within 30 days, we're going to give you a response to say you have been successful or you have not been successful. And this is a movement from previously 40 days to 60 days on bridge financing and 60 to 90 days on term funding. So we are improving. We have also set ourselves a target that says within these 3 years, let's get to do bridge financing approvals within 5 days and term financing approvals within 10 days.
I wonder then, particularly for the kind of entities that you'll now, of course, be looking to help and to expedite this particular process for, are you ever able to get to a point where you give SMMEs feedback on why their applications have been unsuccessful? Because oftentimes the experience of many small businesses, again, is that they'll go to all these entities and they'll be rejected, but they're not been given any reason to help them grow or help them do better as far as their business model is concerned, or just what they could be doing to improve their work, really.
And that's very important, because if you don't assist and give feedback to say this is where you go wrong, where you got wrong, you will never move, you will never change the dynamics that are on the ground. We are working towards that within the 3 years. We should no longer reject an application. Actually, this Small Business Innovation Fund, we don't want to reject applications on the strength of their application not being complete. will want to reject an application on the fact that the business idea is not good enough. Because the SBIF, for instance, funds even when you are at concept level to say, I've got I want to prove that this concept works, and also I want to scale up. So we're funding those things. The intention is that we should be able to hold your hand. Remember, we don't only have CIFA, we also have CEDA, and they have incubators. We've got partner incubators out there. There's a full ecosystem. We want to say, if Kathy has applied for funding and we feel that this business cannot be funded because XYZ is not met, we should be able to refer you to CEDA or an incubator or somewhere, one of our partners, and say, can you assist Kathy to get her business ready for funding at this level, and these are the gaps, and you'll be assisted. That's what we are working towards. But to start, we'll give you feedback to say this is where we have got wrong.
If the figures are right, 1 billion rand sounds like a lot of money to be trying to get rid of before, before the end of the year. I wonder what the kind of risks that are associated with a move like that are. Are you sure about the checks and balances that your teams have to?
We've got a pipeline of businesses that amounts to 4 billion rands, which we are going to reject, not because the business is not good, but because we do not have funding. If you look at our statement, we mentioned that in the 5 years we'll have dispensed 11.5 billion rands to fund almost just under 600,000 SMMEs. But in the countries, there are 2.4 million SMMEs, and majority of those are not having access to funding. We think that if we can leverage another 10 billion rands to make it, or to get to 25 billion rands in the 5 years, we should meet other people. There are processes that are put in place. There's a criteria. There are, I think, 3 layers of evaluation and adjudicating an application. There's generally committees that deal with that. They're doing all the checks and balances from receipt to the final decision, because there are particular conditions that are put in place and criteria to be met.
And given the level at which you're also investing in these businesses, and this is money that, of course, they'll have to pay back, so it's not freebies. You're giving them loans at reasonable rates, and you're taking into account the fact that, many of these entities might not actually be able to start paying up those loans immediately. At which point do you begin to cancel some of the loans because the businesses are simply not viable, or part grant and part loan to those businesses that you think you're a good candidate for this?
So we've removed grants completely, because we think that if you give grants, you are not incentivizing people to work harder. So we're blending. That's what we call blended finance. We are blending a loan and a grant. So you apply for a loan of 3 million or 10 million. Let's use 10 million. It's a nice round figure. You apply for a loan of 10 million. We say, okay, she's a woman. Yes, she's under 40, or she's just 40. Yes, the business is in the township. Or yes, it's a province that's underdeveloped. So in that matrix, let's say you qualify, because our maximum is 2.5 million rands on grant portion of that. So we say you qualify for 2.5 million rands. So we'll give you 7.5 million as a loan with interest, and you pay back that. Then we give you the 2.5 as conditional grant. Conditional grant is you must be able to pay. You create 10 jobs, for instance. You must meet all these other criteria. You must be South African, of course. The business must be registered in South Africa. So we say if those conditions are met and continue to be met, because we're going to help you along the way, you don't have to repay back the conditional grant. But the conditional grant does not also generate interest. So of the 10 million you have received, or you'll receive, 2.5 does not have interest on the capital amount, not at all. So that's money for us to incentivize you to go into business. But the other portion you have to repay. But why we do that because we want to reduce the burden on you, but also give you an opportunity to succeed. We have stopped giving money and going and say, okay, we'll see her in 10 months when she has to start to repay, or in 3 years when she should have repaid, or in 5 years when she should have repaid the full amount. No, we have stopped that. So we give you the money, and we continue to support you. Sometimes we'll have to assist you with access to market, because your product you may have a market now which is small, but at some point it has to expand for you to start to make those profits. So we'll assist you with those, and that's our role, and we want to make sure you succeed at all costs.
How quickly are you expecting some of these decisions to bear fruit? Because in the same breath that you're here this week, we've had particularly those in the entertainment industry speak to us about the plight that they've been having in terms of gaining access to funding. They've raised a number of issues around not just the red tape, but also relationships that determine whether or not you're able to get funding. Who do you know? What are the connections that you have? And do you think that the way that you're almost restructuring the way that this funding is going to be channeled will change any?
An environment where there's less of a human factor that plays a role. Yes, humans will be part of the process, but it should be meeting the criteria, and that criteria should be supportive. That's why we're saying we want to move to an environment where everybody will be supported, either to meet the conditions or to be funded, because we don't want to reject. And most of the things we've started to do, like the blended finance, it's here, we're doing. The common template, it's here, it's being used. The turnaround times, it's here, it's being used. Now even to register a company quicker, it's here, it's happening. We have moved on those spaces. Unfortunately, there's not enough money to go around, so we can't say to the creative industry, we'll fund you. But we have been assigned the responsibility to draft a creative industry master plan as the department, and we'll be leading that engagement, and we'll be looking what are the options that are available to fund, given what the Films and Publications Board and all other funding opportunities are there, whether it's enough, how can it be expanded, how can it be leveraged to make sure that they've got access to funding. But we are moving, and we want some decisions, like other banks. The banks can give you a decision whether your loan has succeeded or not within a day. Why? Because they use robotics, it's artificial intelligence. You tick all these boxes, you can do it in a day, but because we've got human beings, so there must be committees that meet. It has equal chance of being funded than a person who does not know Khumbudzo Ntshavheni. A child or a young entrepreneur in the rural areas or in a township who does not have access to all these other people, but have a brilliant idea, must receive funding, must receive support to have their product in the market, including opportunities to export those products.
All right. Let's leave it there for tonight. Thank you so much for coming on, the Minister of Small Business Development, Minister Khumbudzo Ntshavheni. So we'll leave it there then with the Minister. I wonder what your experience is. We'll certainly be wanting to hear from you on this particular issue. Speak to us if you're experiencing any changes, especially for those of you who are running small to medium enterprises and have been trying to get access to some of these loans. Speak to us. Let us know if the communication is getting better, the turnaround time is getting better, because this is one of those stories where it will be quick to tell whether some of these initiatives are bearing fruit and are working, or if there's still some deadlocks in the system.